So, fill me in on Mr. Sonny.
So Sonny is very sweet, but only to people he knows.
Okay.
Um, he became reactive, like almost right away.
Okay.
I would say maybe at like 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
It started out not so bad, I thought it was just leash reactivity,
Mm-hmm.
but now that he's been off the leash, like with a maintenance worker,
Ah.
he actually went to bite the maintenance worker, which I wasn't expecting. Um, and when we're outside, if he even hears a door shut, he is flying off the handle, lunging, barking. He has come nose to nose with a dog or two and been okay, but I feel like it's kind of unpredictable. Like,
Okay.
I'm nervous to let him get close to other dogs.
Sure. I'm assuming he's good with Murphy.
Mm-hmm. He and Murphy are good. He and my parents' dog, who's also a lab, are good. He met them when he was obviously a
little
tiny
guy.
baby. So
You were there for his meeting.
Yeah, I remember. Um, at what age would you say you started to feel like? Because you said he's always been that way.
yeah,
And
I would
then-
say probably got him in July. I'd say by September. So 3.5 months.
Okay. So he was born in July.
He was born in May. I got him in July.
So you got him at 3 months.
I got him at, I think,
Wasn't he like-
8 or 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was born like later May. By the time you got him, it was July.
Right.
And then about 3.5 months, you started to feel like he was becoming reactive.
Yes.
Okay. What was the first thing he was reactive to, or the first things? Was it more dogs, more people, both?
Other dogs.
Okay. And then it became people.
Yeah.
When did it become people?
Maybe like a month later.
Okay, so about 4.5 months.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then I saw that you worked with the trainer.
Yeah, it was 2 very brief sessions. She was nice, but she was really focused on basic commands, and I said, I need to work on the reactivity, like it's affecting our life. But she felt like doing basic stuff, which I think is important too, but
How is it impacting at the time, your life?
I don't enjoy taking him on walks.
Sure.
Right now. We love to walk with Murphy and Rachel, and he is a terror on the walks.
So Murphy's now the.
Yes, the star student.
He is the prize.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, the TV.
Okay.
That is getting worse, like by the day.
Mm-hmm.
He lunges, barks. He'll stand up on his back legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be just animals.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's water. It's sporting events.
Yeah. People being athletic on television,
Yeah.
he hates.
Sure. Gotcha.
Water. It's everything.
Gotcha. Okay. Has there been any bite attempts?
So he went to bite the boot of a maintenance worker.
Mm-hmm.
It was like steel toe, so he didn't bite him. He's still very nippy, and he really is going after hands a lot, I've noticed right now.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say there's been any major bite attempts.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
Can you think of anything else?
He seems to spitefully poop in the house sometimes, but I think I don't know that has anything to do with his reactivity or behavioral.
I've read that dogs aren't actually spiteful, but sometimes it feels.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Like I had a client, her dog had reactivity, we addressed reactivity, no problem. Husband went out of town, and then the dog peed on the husband's pillow.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah,
nice.
and it happened like 2 or 3 times in a row where she's like, I'm pretty sure she's she's being spiteful. I've seen that, actually it happened to me many years ago. I was in Miami doing my internship, my dog training internship. My girlfriend at the time came to visit me. And we went out she came over, left her stuff. We went out for dinner, and I guess she brought a pillow with her. And I'm positive it was Lexi peed on her pillow. Yes. So I've seen things like this that seem spiteful. it's difficult to explain just because obviously from a human perspective you can't help but see it that way. But it's not enough for me to say that dogs are capable of it. So it's kind of like there's videos of dogs saving dogs, like they'll pull them out of traffic. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Right? So that's like compassion type of thing or whatever. And then I've had people ask me like, "Oh, do you think dogs are capable of that?" I'm like, "Well, that's and when you look at it, it looks very compassionate, and maybe evolution obviously." The dog, you get one here and there that maybe has that attribute, but not enough on a widespread scale for me to say like dogs are compassionate creatures or whatever. Um, so here, what makes things easier is you have a little guy, okay? We do the same approach. We do remote collar. As you know, you probably saw there are collars for dogs his size. Um, he would most likely, I would put him on the Dogtra 280C, which is meant for a dog his size, but it has it's like Murphy's where it's exact numbering. Because the one below it, I believe, is the Dogtra IQ or the IQ Plus. I think there's even another one, the Micro, the Macro or something, which are meant for like little teacup dogs. The reason why I don't recommend those is it's a dial of 0 to 100, and it's a assumed number. You don't have exact numbering. It's not like the LED screen where if you're at 56, you know you're at 56. Okay. So that's what I'd recommend for this guy. Um, what makes things trickier is that it's his size. Is that in the home, like barking at the TV, it's very easy to correct, but you're not always going to have the collar on. Right. So at some point, you're going to take the collar off, and we still need to correct him. In these cases, that's where we use what's called a bunker. We ever talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you can actually bunk all that stuff. It's perfectly fine. Obviously, so where things get tricky is, for example, I have Poncho, who's my Chihuahua. He's 8 pounds. Okay. When I got him, he was leash reactive, like very leash reactive. And I got him before I did e-collar. So I was using prong collar, and they do make prong collars for dogs his size. Okay, it's called the micro or the macro prong collar. And I would have to correct Poncho so firmly that he would spin, and then he'd go right back at it. And it would take me about 2 to 3 very firm corrections to the point that he would spin before he would stop. And then people would look at me going like, "What the hell are you doing to your dog?" I'm like, "Well, he's not being hurt clearly because he's continuing the behavior." So once I started remote collar training, it was a game changer because I no longer had to do these kind of physical corrections or whatever, right? Is when we go to correct these guys, because they're so small, one, we tend to have a natural inclination of I don't want to hurt my dog, and obviously we don't want to hurt the dog, but at the same time we need to correct, right? So if he got out of line, for example, with Murphy, and Murphy decided I need to correct you, Murphy doesn't go, "You're a little guy, so I'm going to give you a little correction." He goes, "I'm going to give you a correction, and I don't care how big you are, right? I don't care how old you are." I have another client or a former client that they have 2 dogs. One's a senior, the other one's like 8 years old. So I think the senior's like 13, 14, and she's already starting to see a flip where the 8-year-old is now starting to assert itself over the senior, and she's like, I'm aware that dogs don't have that respect like we humans are taught, right? We respect our elders, or at least humans used to be taught that. Nowadays, don't seem like that anymore. But yeah, dogs don't have that. So we would still correct him. Obviously, you just have to be mindful of how firm you're correcting. You want to be firm, but not so firm that you actually injure the guy. Okay, so this is stuff that I will work with you on. The remote collar stuff all remains the same. If it's a collar that's appropriate to his size, he's not going to get any bigger, right? Because he's how old now?
He's 7.5 months.
7.5 months, yeah. So he might gain a little bit on weight, but size-wise, I don't imagine him getting any bigger. Okay. Now, the issue that you're going to have is winter's obviously upon us now. Is I train no matter what. We have a nice big facility space to train out of, but your training would still be reinforced outside. Okay, and that's where you're probably going to struggle because then he's not built for this weather. So for example, for Lexi, she's from Texas. All my dogs are from Texas. Lexi and Poncho hate the snow. They hate the cold weather. They will sleep all day and hibernate if they could. If I take her out for a walk, I now no longer, one, because she's 13, 14, but make them heel in the winter because you'll see where they're kind of just bucking back and forth because they know they have to hold the position, but it's so cold they want to get home, right? So that's not disobedience. Like I'm the same way. I get out my car and I'm like shuffling. I got to get inside, right? So that's what you're going to struggle with here. Okay. So uh, we can obviously work and get things started if you're hoping to address things sooner rather than later. If you push this till the spring, it's not going to impact your the issue here. Okay, just so you're aware. I'll give you options, but people tend not to account for in the wintertime, especially with heel training and or recall, you will be outside.
Yeah.
Okay, I've also had a couple other clients with reactivity do a couple of classes just so we can knock it out, and then they'll come back and they just push for the spring, but they just want to have peace of mind and walk their dog. So that's also an option. Okay, so just heads up on that. So when it comes to the remote collar, clearly you're familiar with it, right? Have you ever felt it before?
No.
No? So it's just a miniaturized. Have you felt it? Yeah, it's miniaturized.
A few months ago.
It's a miniaturized tens unit. Yeah, it's a little muscle stimulator. I always recommend people feel it. Now, keep in mind that Murphy's is meant for a 70-pound dog and over. So 20 on that will feel different than 20 on his because the output is appropriate to the size of the dog. Okay. Questions on any of that stuff so far?
I don't think so.
Obviously, we have the reactivity. What's the goal? What are you hoping to achieve within your training?
I have no interest in him ever being off leash
Okay.
or anything like that. I just want him to be calm
Okay.
and maybe be able to play with other dogs.
Okay.
Able to walk.
Yes, be able to walk. I mean, even like potty breaks are like unpleasant right now.
Just because of the reactivity.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I also work from home sometimes and am on like meetings, calls. He does not want to be by himself.
Separation anxiety.
Yeah. He's okay in his crate when I'm at work. I have a dog walker that comes once a day when I'm in the office. But like when I'm in a meeting with someone, he's jumping on me, he's biting my hands. I'll put his bed right by me so he could, play with a toy and lay there. He doesn't want to do that. He does not really lay on his own ever.
Okay. Sounds like overstimulation. Sounds familiar. Right. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, he does a few basic commands like sit and knows his name and waits for his food. But yeah, I don't need any like crazy tricks or anything like that.
Has he always been on the harness?
No.
No.
I only use the harness when we're in the car.
Gotcha. Okay.
And on longer walks.
I mean, he's curious. I was just testing to see if he'd get defensive. I mean, he's cautious here. See how he backs away. Okay. So just so that you're aware too, a lot of stuff that you're dealing with is nervous dog. Yeah. Okay. So fear, nervousness, and anxiety looks similar just because they're not confident behaviors. But you see how he leans in and how he was looking out the window and he was leaning out, right? He's being cautious. That's not a confident dog. Okay. Which is most likely where all his behaviors are coming from. Reactivity and stuff is not the problem. It's always the symptom of a problem. Okay. Chances are, because this happened as soon as you got him, this is just genetics. Okay. And then in time, because things you try to address, but they weren't really being addressed, at least in a way the dogs understand, things just start to exacerbate. Okay. But here, when I moved towards him with the sleeve, if he was truly aggressive, like he would have bit it.
Yeah.
Okay, so he didn't do anything. You saw him kind of back away and stuff. And then now he's going back to sniffing, right? Like he's not caring about it anymore. So like nervousness will settle down, and if there's a sudden change, they'll bark, right? So like if you're in your house and let's say with the guest, and the guest stands up and he starts barking, that's a nervous dog. They'll learn to acclimate when everything's calmed down, but when something changes, they just trigger. Anxiety doesn't want to settle. So like right now, you see how he keeps walking around. This looks like anxiety, but it's not. Okay, because he's not panting, he's not salivating, he doesn't have whale eye or anything like that, right? This is overstimulation. Okay, this is the brain's inability to turn off. But anxiety and overstimulation tend to look very similar. Overstimulation can lead to anxiety because the brain becomes so overwhelmed, they get stressed out and then they become anxious. A fearful dog will trigger and typically won't let things go. So like when he backed up and started being like growling, like that was kind of a little bit of a fear response, but then he let it go. A fearful dog doesn't. They just stay stuck. Okay. So I would say you have a nervous, overstimulated guy. Okay. So the nervousness is genetics. Overstimulation tends to be the lack of formal boundaries. Okay, so it's not to say that you've not tried to establish boundaries. It's just establish boundaries in a way that he understands, which is he is meant to be nipped and bitten. And usually human approaches redirect with food, put them in timeout, turn your back and ignore them, pick them up, right? That's all human response, but dogs don't do that to each other. Okay, dogs simply nip and bite each other when someone or a dog gets out of line. Make sense? So when it comes to the behaviors when you're in the home, some of that may go away on its own just through the discipline of heel. Okay, if it doesn't, no problem, we can address it. Okay, if you leave him home alone, does he bark?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
I do think he feels safe in his crate. If I've been home with him for a lot of the day and I go out for an hour, he screams, barks the whole time. If I do my usual like day in an office where we get up at 6 a.m., I leave at 7:30, he gets one walk a day, and then I come home at 5:15, he doesn't bark.
So it's not consistent enough for you to say like he's got it.
I don't feel like I have a...
Okay. Because typically dogs, like when you said he doesn't want to leave me, right? He's like always wanting to engage in stuff. Will have separation anxiety. So it's good that he doesn't, at least not consistently, because separation anxiety is one of the harder things to fix.
Okay.
I find aggression to be easier than separation anxiety, because separation anxiety is typically created through the relationship with the owner. Okay, the owner dotes on the dog. The owner is too affectionate with the dog, and gives the dog everything it wants, so it empowers the dog. I actually have a case right now where on class 6 out of 9, we've got the reactivity stuff done, all the aggression stuff done. Separation anxiety is still a problem because the owner herself doesn't like the kennel. She doesn't like the dogs being stressed in the kennel. She doesn't like correcting the dog for being stressed in the kennel. And I said, that way, how she feels about that is why the dog has separation anxiety. You know, the boyfriend gets it. He's like, makes sense to me. The girlfriend, however, we're working on that. Okay, so that makes life a lot easier. The other thing is when we have aggressive behaviors, people are more inclined to also correct them because there's liability there. Even the little guys. You know, I had it was a Chihuahua who was like 8 pounds. He bit the dog walker on the thumb, took out their fingernail, went to the ER. Yeah, it was a whole big thing. So,
Don't get any ideas.
so
That sounds fun.
yeah. So here, what I would most likely suggest is base minimum would be 3 classes. 6, you're probably in a good safe spot there. The only reason why I say that is the stuff in the home. Okay. It may seem like a lot, but it's actually not. Once you understand how to correct a dog, it's just to correct the dog. Okay. So that's why I'm also proposing the idea of 3. So we have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. The 3-week program is I want to walk my dog. I don't want reactivity. Okay. 6-week is walk my dog, call my dog, which you don't want recall, but there's other stuff to address. The 9-week is walk my dog, call my dog, go to restaurants. 12 is the full, like I want off-leash control of my guy, right? So you're not wanting recall, which is why I was like, oh, that knocks one thing off the list. So if you did 3, heel is 2 parts, 2 classes. The 3rd class, I would anticipate the reactivity would be gone, okay? If not, we'd most likely cover how to address reactivity, but then also how to correct all the behaviors in the home, okay? And that's me just kind of simplifying it. Anything else outside of that, I don't know that we would cover in 3, okay? So that's why I said maybe 6. Worst comes to worst, if we're not worst comes to worst, let's say we do 4 or 5 and you're happy with everything and you got some credit or whatever, or a class left over, you can always convert it to credit and then you can use it towards food or boarding, whatever you'd like, not a problem. Dogs that have trained with us are welcome to stay with us. Questions on any of that?
I was interested in daycare and train.
Okay.
Do you do that with dogs of this size?
Yes.
Okay.
So daycare and train, he could technically do because your case is mild enough that I don't consider this to be really behavior.
Okay.
Okay, it is behavior, but it's not like you'd come in like, I need to get this fucking shit done. Like this dog bit 5 people type of thing,
Yeah.
you know? So the daycare and train, however, is probably gonna cover a ton more stuff than you're gonna need or want.
Okay.
So we have 5, 10, 15, and 20-day daycare programs. Think of 1 week with us is like 3 weeks of your time, okay? In terms of how much we're able to get done in terms of reps and everything. In a daycare and train, it's really focused on obedience training. We're not going to see reactivity most likely. So if we don't see reactivity, I can't show you how to correct reactivity. Okay. We can try to force things, but a lot of times when we get dogs, we see nothing. Okay. Because they're out of their element. Plus, we don't let a lot of stuff happen from the get-go. So they already know the relationship established is this is a place of discipline. So they don't even think about acting up. Okay. So then there's going to be a disconnect there because then you pick him up and you're like, he's still an asshole. And I'm like, but he's great here. Right. Now, it comes with follow-up classes, which you could use. So the way the daycare and train works is I film the first lesson of everything that we teach. Heel, sit, stay, down, come, place. So 6 commands, right? I film the first lesson of everything because that's where all the learning is. And then I compile it to make one comprehensive video. Usually runs between 2 to 3 hours, okay? So that helps transfer what Sonny has learned to you to begin applying, okay? It also comes with follow-ups. I believe it's on the website, but I believe you get 2 hours of follow-up, 2 1-hour lessons for each week we have your dog. So if you did a 5-day, you'd get 2 1-hour lessons. If you did a 10-day, you'd get 4 1-hour lessons, okay? Those lessons can be used for whatever. So if you do really well with the obedience, you're like, hey, this is great, this is easy, but I am having difficulty with reactivity, we would schedule a follow-up, and then I can help you address the reactivity in the follow-up because I'm not able to address it in the daycare and train, okay? Now, with the 5-day daycare and train, I'm going to get a lot more done than you would get done in a 3-week training program because the training program is just heel part 1, heel part 2. How do we correct behaviors?
Yeah.
Okay. But the difference is you learn everything yourself.
Right.
So that's actually where I find there's the value. So then you can mull it over. You're welcome to choose what you'd like. I'm always a big advocate for it. You want to do it yourself because you're the one that has to live with the dog. Right. I already know how to do this stuff. That's why I'm here 12 to 14 years into a career. So even though it would be a short 3, if you did 3 classes with me, you're going to learn a ton more than with a 5-day daycare and train. Okay. So that's just my opinion on it. Of course, you're welcome to decide how you'd like. When it comes to the daycare and train, the first 3 days are where all the filming is. So I always tell the clients, the faster I get the 3 days in, the faster I can turn around and give you your video. Okay. So I have a daycare and train right now. She did 3 in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I filmed everything. By Friday, I sent her the videos. And then the daycare and train is meant to work us with the owner in tandem. So like she's going to take her dog probably for a week or so to start applying everything. And then when she brings him back, she might say his recall needs work or his place needs work, blah, blah, blah. So then I go, okay, we know what we need to focus on as she's applying the training at home. Okay. So for you, I probably wouldn't say you need a 10-day because you don't care about having this dog off leash. And that's where the 10-day comes in. 10 to 15 and 20 days are like, we want an off-leash dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is there any reason why you don't want him off leash?
I just don't know that I would ever be comfortable with it.
Okay.
If it's something that, I don't know, I've never even really thought about it. Because I'm like, what if something happened and he ran away?
Sure. So, do you have Murphy off leash?
No.
No? You don't trust him?
I don't trust him. I might trust him to a point, but not that much.
Sure. So, everybody's different. You have off-leash control doesn't mean you need to use the off-leash stuff, okay? So I had a client, she had a reactive pit bull. He had already went through 2 training programs, and a in-person and a board and train, still reactive, okay? She finds me. I actually remember I work on boats, so I used to work on boats, and we were sanding and painting the boats. And I remember her calling me, and I stopped because my boss yelled at me. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're working for me." We're good friends, so whatever. But I remember where I was, and her telling me about the case, and she's like, "Yeah, he's already filled another trainer. He's already did a board and train. He's still reactive. Can you help?" I said, "Yes." So she ended up doing a 9-week they in person with me. Um, and we trained out of Lincoln Park, right where it's next to the lake, where the Lincoln is or whatever. And at the end of the program, I told her, because the dog had a lot of training and then everything that I put on. And I said, your dog is off-leash reliable. And she goes, Jesse, I would never have this dog off leash, right? She's like, I just don't trust him, because she was traumatized by all the reactivity. She used to walk up and down 20-something flights to avoid dogs on the elevator.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because of the reactivity. After the training with me, she was able to take the elevator and all that stuff, because she had the incorrect collar for the dog. We put him on a high-powered collar, and then she wasn't going high enough to actually stop the reactivity. So then I told her, I'm like, you've done great work. Your dog's off leash trained. Fast forward to the following year, because I used to do pack walks out of Lakeview we used to meet over by Diversey and Inner Lakeshore Drive. There's like a statue there. And she showed up with her dog off leash. And I remember the first thing I thought was, you told me you wouldn't do that, right? So I was like, look who's off leash. And she's like, yeah, Jesse. She's like, it took me about 3 months after the training to realize that you were correct. Like, he was off leash reliable, but I just wasn't ready to have him off leash. So she had to catch up to his training. So whenever people ask me, like, how do I know when I'm ready? I go, because you're the one that does all the work. You're the one that does all the reps. You're the one that sees all the failures. You're the one that recovers from the failures. You see the successes. That's actually what tells you my dog is off leash reliable, because it also comes to handler confidence. I've had people after the first class come back on the second class walking the dog off leash already.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. And you're like, what the hell,
That
right?
sounds like overconfidence.
And I would tell them, I love the confidence, but we have some things we do need to work out, but I love the confidence. So it's doable.
Yeah.
I can actually walk a dog off leash within 2 days, because I'm a trainer. I've done this for years and all that stuff. But I always like to tell people, like, your ceiling's up here because of the tool that we're using. Okay. Now, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. I've had a couple of other clients, although it's rare, that go, nope, I'm okay. And I go, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do believe every dog should have a recall, just in case shit happens.
Sure.
Okay. So now keep in mind, if you're not using it regularly, it's not going to be the best. That's actually what makes things functional, is the regular application of things. So if you did a daycare and train, remember, sit, stay down, come, place, heel. I'm teaching everything. But if all you use is the heel, in time, expect everything else to, you don't necessarily lose it, but it gets very sloppy. It gets unreliable. Okay, so I always tell my clients, find at least one time a day you use each of these commands. Heel is always the most used, because when you're walking, obviously your dog's leash reactive, so you're going to be inclined to use it to keep them under control, to help address the reactivity. But the sit, the stay, the down, the place tend to be ignored. Recall tends to be used fairly frequently as well, because if people let their dog off leash, they're wanting to return it. So heel and recall tend to be the two most common things that people keep up. Everything else kind of tends to fall to the wayside. Okay, which is, for the clients that bring their dogs here, is nice, because we use place as a regular part of our day, so it still keeps their duration work functional. Okay, so just be mindful of that stuff. Is that you're going to probably get a 2 to 3 hour video, and you're going to go, the only thing that applies to me is the heel. Okay, questions on any of that?
I don't think so. Rachel and I were talking about, like, I would like to bring him to daycare eventually. We work in the area, and Murphy has done so well. And I just thinking about the dog walker, the fact that they come for 25 minutes and
Probably pay the same price.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking about that with somebody. They're like, I don't get it. People pay dog walkers like $50 for half an hour, and then for us it's 40 days, and your dog, 40 bucks, and you're here, dog's here for the whole day.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny. Plus we reinforce if the dog has been trained by us. So
Yeah, so I think that would be great to eventually do.
mm-hmm.
Also, something I didn't mention before, when we worked with the other trainer for the 2 sessions, something that made it hard, he wouldn't work with her. He would only work with me. I don't know if you remember that.
So if she took him,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wouldn't, like, go to her.
yeah, it's because probably stress,
Yeah.
discomfort. He's like, I don't care about the treat in your hand if you're using food or whatever. Doesn't matter for us because we can use food, but he's a big boy now in our eyes, that we would just do big boy training. It doesn't matter. He'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
he'll do it. It may not look pretty, in the beginning, but I'll work him through it. He'll do it. And that's actually how we build confidence. Is like even when Rachel's touching him, can you see his timidness? Right? Like earlier, you went to pet him and he actually did this. And you're someone he knows very well. You know, that's the nervous energy that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. That even with someone that he's very familiar with, he's nervous.
Yeah, I took him to Florida. We took him, we flew and went to Florida for a week for Thanksgiving, and he met my grandma. And
he didn't like our sweet elderly grandmother.
Yeah, he would not go near her, was barking at her.
Growled at her a lot.
Yeah. So he's very, like, he's comfortable. I don't even know if I would say very comfortable, but with you, with my boyfriend, and with my parents, and there's like, that's it.
Yeah. So typically when we get puppies that end up developing or having behavioral issues, anybody and any dog they met prior to 6 months tend to be in the circle of trust. Then if they flip or the behaviors get worse outside of that, no. It's unless you're doing something to address it, they tend not to open up outside the bubble. Okay? It's because at 6 months, a year, and 2 years, we have pivotal psychological shifts where we have personality shifts. So even if we have a puppy that's social, sometimes what happens at 6 months is they flip and they become antisocial, okay, due to the personality shift. And clients will note anybody that the dog met prior to the 6 month, prior to the shift is okay. The dog loves them. Anybody outside of that, not happening. Okay. Now this does bring up an important point: is if one of your goals is to be able to introduce them to new people, right? You said it was your grandmother, like your grandmother. That would be more so an in-person. Okay. Now, you know, because if you did the 5-day, you know, you're getting your 2 follow-ups, and we might use one for reactivity, or maybe Rachel can help you with the reactivity because she knows how to handle it, right? And you can pocket those 2, and then you can say, hey, Jesse, obedience is good. Rachel helped me with the reactivity, but I would like to learn how to introduce my dog to new people. We could do that with the follow-up, okay? But if you did an in-person, especially that 6 week, the latter half of the 6 weeks, I'm working on that other stuff. Does that make sense? So that's what makes it kind of tricky, is because even though you get so much control with the daycare and train, those things are still going to be there because that's outside of his home. It's here, you know. Whereas with the in-person stuff, you tell me what you want to work on, I just show up. And I go, okay, cool, we'll do that today. Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so. The only other thing I can think of that he does that's gotten worse, the vacuum. He used to just bark.
Easy.
Now he like goes to bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Okay.
So stopping stuff is always easy because it's just consequence. I don't need, you know, the thing about positive only is that, like have your dog sit and then you bring out the vacuum. And when your dog sees the vacuum, give them a lot of treats. So when they see the vacuum, they think treats and then they like the vacuum. I go, no, they don't. You know, it's called counter conditioning. Counter conditioning does work for some stuff. Okay. But if the dog, most likely because the vacuum is foreign to him, he doesn't know what it is, he's a nervous dog. As soon as you turn it on, you know, you're going to see that, right? Because it's the turning it on that a lot of times is what starts everything. So right there, I don't care how he feels about the vacuum. We would simply just correct him and teach him not to attack the vacuum or bark at the vacuum. So he might sit in the corner going, I hate that thing. I go, that's fine, because I just need it to clean. I don't need you to like it. I don't need you to love it. Okay, I just need you to accept it and tolerate it. Okay, so correcting behavior, once you understand how to do it, it's really just, this applies to everything. You know, so like I was raised old school, I was spanked. If I didn't do my homework, if I talked back to my mom, if I was grounded and I tried to sneak out of my room, right? It was just spank, spank, spank. Like it was one consequence for like a multitude of behaviors. Dogs are the same way. You know, if he gets out of line, they just bite him. If he's being annoying, they just bite him. If he barks at their face, they just bite him. That's all it is. They don't sit there and have conversations. They don't sit there and have like all these different ways of approaching things. They just bite each other. Okay. So my job is essentially to teach you, how do you bite your dog, to tell him, I disagree with what you're doing. Okay. Other things.
I don't think so.
Keep in mind, this is a lifestyle. It's not just you train your dog and then he's good or whatever. Your dog will be good because you're doing a good job about reinforcing everything, right? Let Let me think here, because sometimes what happens is when people start to see progress, they become complacent and they start to do less because they think the dog is fixed. And then little by little, things start to come back. Okay. Once you've established the work, it's just reinforcing, just like with everything, There was a point where I was going to the gym regularly and I had fallen out of that habit, but I was definitely in better shape when I was going to the gym regularly because I was maintaining, right? Same thing for the dog. Once you get everything in check, as you're applying it daily, you're just maintaining, okay? The moment you start to be lenient and or lazy or not reinforcing stuff, things start to come back, okay? Anything else?
Really offended by that coat wrap.
Yeah, I mean, new things. I'll like break down a box,
Oh,
and before I bring it outside, he will like kind of play with it and then bark at it incessantly until it's out of sight.
sure. Yeah, that's nervous dog. Yeah. Again, pretty straightforward. Potentially the heel stuff might address it, especially the overstimulation stuff. Once you get a dog to focus and just walk, a lot of the problem behaviors tend to go away. But stuff that are triggered by nervousness most likely won't go away because that's a nervous thing as opposed to like an overstimulation thing. Okay, overstimulation you can look at as like frustration from being bored. Like you see he's like jumping on Rachel here, right? That's to me, that's frustration. And you see how it's like it's been at least half an hour and he's still just kind of like walking around and stuff. That's overstimulation. Like my pit, 30 seconds, she's already laying down, chilling out. Yeah, like she's but I had her since she was 3 months. So all that conditioning throughout the years, she's like, we're not doing anything. I'm just gonna chill. Okay.
Would love that.
Any other questions?
He couldn't turn off.
Right. I
Yeah.
know.
You'll help so much with that.
Yeah, he's good with turning off now. Sometimes.
Sometimes he needs a reminder.
Most
Yeah.
of the time, he's good at turning
Yeah.
off.
He does great here with the play stuff and everything.
Yeah, and I have fallen off with that at home a little bit. So the fact that he does it here is so good.
Yeah. No, it's pretty common. You're not the only person. That's why earlier I mentioned heel and recall are always the two that people practice. Everything else tends to get overlooked, So
A small apartment and it doesn't bother me when he follows me around. So I'm never like I see over there. But when you talk about work and how he doesn't let you work, I work at home a little bit. He can now lay on a dog bed right behind me. He sleeps the whole 4
Nice.
hours that I'm working.
Yeah.
So, and he couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
So that like this training made a huge difference there too.
Yeah, that's a big thing that would ease my stress and anxiety.
So you're anxious and you have an anxious dog.
Yeah, I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, it becomes a feedback loop. So what I've seen throughout the years is people get a dog, everything's rainbows and fairy farts until it's not. Then the reactivity creates stress for the owner. Then the owner becomes anxious because they're just like on the lookout of like, am I going to see a dog, right? So now they're constantly on edge. Then the dog sees that they're on edge, but the dog doesn't understand they're on edge because of their own reactivity. So the dog just goes, you're on edge. Now I'm on edge because you're on edge, right? And it just becomes just like that Spider-Man meme where everybody's just pointing at everybody. So once we get things in check, your confidence goes up. And then once you start to get successes, you'll start to feel more relaxed because you're like, oh, I have the ability to stop and or his reactivity is dropped, right? So then you start to feel better. And then he sees you feel better. And then he's like, oh, there's now no reason for me to be reactive anymore. That's how this stuff typically works out. Okay. In terms of his harness and stuff, so is it for like the seatbelt or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. And then when you walk him on a flat collar?
When I walk him just regularly throughout the day, I do the flat collar.
Okay.
But if we go on longer walks, I have used the harness because
Pulls.
he like runs while we walk.
I see.
I literally am holding him back. He'll like slingshot.
Sure.
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I gotcha. So yeah, for your walks, all you'll need is your flat collar and then the remote collar. Again, just remember, we are going into the winter, so it's going to be a little bit harder for him to try to walk with you. Some ways to get training in still would be like Home Depot. A lot of places now, I think even Best Buy now is dog friendly. Yes. So, it might be too cold for him, but you can use these kind of bigger warehouse stores to be able to practice and apply your training. Plus, it's busy. Home Depot for a dog like this, I would say, is probably going to be difficult. I've had clients train there, you know. So let's say you get a couple of days outside, you're feeling good, take them into Home Depot, and then if that's good too, then you could probably just during the wintertime keep a lot of your training indoors.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
My question with the biting and like the obsession with hands right now,
Mhm.
he's like using his paws to get my arm,
Mhm.
hold my arm, and then bite my hand.
Mhm.
And he's doing everything he can.
Mhm.
Is that still just like puppy behavior?
No, he's a killer.
Oh, okay.
That's his judgment. Yeah, I mean, he's a dachshund. You know, they're meant to burrow and like catch prey and stuff. I'm imagining probably using his legs there, right? So again, it can be corrected. The reason why it's happening doesn't really matter because it's not going to impact how we address it, you know? So even when I get dogs that are fear aggressive, we still have to correct the aggression. It doesn't matter that the dog's doing it because they're scared. Okay. Now, if it's just because you want to understand it, the way I would look at it is, you know, he's treating your hand as a prey. He's catching and holding it, and it's just probably puppy play biting. Okay. And that's all stuff that you can correct. Now, me with my pit, I will antagonize her. I'll grab her by the jowls and I'll play with her, right, and do this stuff, and I'll walk away with teeth marks because she's obviously biting back and stuff. But that's what the play is, you know. So I don't get mad at her because I know I'm, of course, creating that. So if you're playing with them and you're doing mouthy stuff, like I saw you a moment ago, like kind of do this, and he did a little bit of an air snap. Like I go, that to me makes sense because that's what you're asking for. But if you're doing that and then he bites you and then you go, no, bad dog, I go, well, now you're working against yourself because you're creating the behavior. The dog gives you the behavior. You go, no, I want to do this, but I don't want you to use your mouth. Then we get conflict. Does that make sense? So there's certain things that I would say if you want him not to use his mouth so much with the play on you, I would discourage that kind of interaction. So if you're just petting him calmly and he mouths you, you can correct that because you're like, dude, I was just petting you. There's no need to mouth me, right? But that makes sense. But if it's like, oh, I'm roughhousing, if I'm roughhousing with Lexi and she goes to bite me and they go, hey, you know, like that's just unfair to her. Okay. So stuff like that too, I can help you clear up, but to me, nothing out the ordinary. If he was intending to do harm, like you would have punctures and like aggression looks completely different. Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so.
So I guess mull over what you want to do if you really want to do the daycare and train, what have you. If you're not looking for any kind of off-leash stuff, chances are you're going to be fine with just a 5-day. And then if you just want your video sooner, then 3 days in a row is always best. Because then I get everything recorded and then it takes me a couple of days to edit. Okay, I will be going out of town next weekend, the 19th through the 22nd. So Friday through Monday, and then I'm back on that Tuesday. So just heads up there.
Do you ever do 5 days in a row, or do you not recommend that?
We can, you know, but it's if you want to get the most out of your program, you could do the 3, get your video, watch the video, start applying stuff. It could be 3 weeks, and then you send him back for day 4, and you're like, hey, could you work on this, please? Because he's struggling. I go, sure. Yeah. So daycare and train gives you a bit of wiggle room because as long as you've got the first 3 down and you have your video, you can start applying things. If you send them once a week, you're not going to get your video until, you know, week 3. So, but it's completely up to you. You could do 5 days in a row if you wanted, but it's not going to. Training is always about time and application, right? So even if a client has come to me for the first class, like I had a guy, he's a basketball coach. I saw him for his dog week 1, and then I see him for like 3 or 4 weeks because he was traveling or whatever. Then he came back for week 2, and I was like, how'd it go? He's like, oh, it was great. He's like, I've seen a lot of progress in the past, you know, few weeks since I've seen you. Because Peel Part 1 is where a lot of the information is. Once you understand that, it's the rehearsing and the daily application and time. Where he had a month's time of practicing this, that he was able to see a month's time of progress, you know? So with remote collar and the way that we train, it gives you a bit of wiggle room there, okay? But if you'd like, you can.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do the 3 days and then from there.
Sure.
One at a time.
Yeah. And I think that having the 2 training sessions
Outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're welcome to add on more. I'm in the process, sneak preview for you guys on getting together some kind of group class. The issue is when I've done group classes in the past is when you have 5 people, 6 people, 6 different schedules.
Yeah.
Oh, can you move it? Or I'm not going to be there this Sunday. Can you and I go, no, like it's a group class, but you'd be surprised the shit that people ask for, you know? But group classes would be for people who have trained with us. I don't like group classes because everybody's got their own problems, right? But after you've done training and then you go to a group class, it's better because even though you might have an issue, you're not going to take a whole hour to address the issue.
Yeah.
You've already got a foundation of stuff. It's really like I want to expose my dog to other people. I'm also thinking of doing targeted group classes where one class will be on reactivity, another class would be on human reactivity, or another class would be like how do we introduce my dog to a person or a child. So it's in the works. So just heads up there, that'll be an option as well in the future for clients is they can come in. So if the group class of the week is human reactivity or how to introduce, that's for me and Sonny. Sign up and you'd get the information you're looking for. So, okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I guess just how to move forward.
So Tina would most likely push you towards info because so Tina handles my calendar, my in-persons, my consults. And then info, Maria and or Elizabeth handle the schedulings for the facility, all the boarding trains, all the daycare and trains, okay? So info books his daycare and trains, but then if you need to book a follow-up in person, then you're back to Tina. Okay, so if you emailed info by accident, I'd like to book my follow-up with Jesse, they'd most likely just say, okay, no problem, Tina will help you. So if you email the wrong person, no big deal. Okay? Other questions?
I should get the e-collar.
Yes, so we'll send you the information for it. You can get it through us or you can get it online. I don't care where you get it from, as long as you get the correct collar. Do keep in mind if you order off of Chewy and or Amazon to double check your collar that it is the correct collar because clients have been sent the incorrect collar, okay? And then they show up and they're like, yeah, I'm like, that is incorrect, okay? So just double check that it's the Dr. 280C. Tina will send you the information. And then we'll need a recent or a fecal from him, okay, a clear fecal, and then of course his vaccination records. So as long as everything's up to date, they'll most likely send you the link to our Ginger software where you create a profile for Sonny and yourself. That's where you can upload his vaccination records. You can also email it to info and they'll put it in for you as well. And then after that, they'll help you schedule your days. Okay. Other questions?
Is there like a turnaround time? Like it wouldn't start this week?
No, yeah. So I actually have a person starting a 3-week board and train this coming Tuesday. So I have 2 or 3 board and trains and then 2 daycare and trains. So then they'd most likely push you to the week of the 23rd when I'll be back. Just because I'm going to be out Friday through Monday. Otherwise, typically I come in and just hash everything out. My days here typically Saturday through Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays are typically my days off. But if there's board and trains and stuff, I still come in and work with them. But yeah, they'll help you figure that out. But with me going out of town, that's what makes things a little bit trickier. Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so. No.
All right. Well, hopefully he doesn't give me a run for my money.
He might.
Nah, I've seen this all before. I don't think he's that bad. I think he's a mild case.